Nothing brings out the conspiracy theories like a pandemic. Welcome everyone, this is the Wealthy Accountant and this is the fuzzy logic of COVID-19. Before we get started, I want you to be aware that there are 2.5 sections to this video. The first section we're going to look at the conspiracy theories and some of the numbers that they use, and we're going to use a little bit of dark humor as we compare it to other things in our life that make it more relevant and more understandable. In the second section, which is a little bit shorter, we're going to talk about how these actual numbers, the true logical review of those numbers will apply in your life, whether it becomes something of money or some other issue. But in part 2A, that half section is not going to be a real long section, but it will show you exactly how this fuzzy logic can harm you, not just with your health, but also can harm you financially. Your goals for retirement and personal finance, the financial independence so these things can actually harm you, not just with your health, but with personal finance. So in other words, your early retirement goals, if you have that as a goal, any retirement for that matter, as well as financial independence. So we're going to talk about how the fuzzy logic of COVID-19 will make a difference in your life, not just in health, but in your money. Two things we want to talk about in this conspiracy theory, this fuzzy logic, if you will, of COVID-19. The first we're going to talk about is masks, and the second we're going to talk about is the validity and how accurate the numbers actually are. Let's talk about masks, because it seems to be the craziest thing I've ever heard. First of all, people are telling me, and I see this online, I see it in social media, I see the memes, and I see it coming into my office, where people tell me they can't wear a mask. Okay? They can't wear a mask for medical reasons, and I understand that. What I understand is that doctors for over 100 years have been wearing masks, and to this day, doctors and nurses have never once, while in surgery, have ever passed out. It just doesn't happen. So it's kind of an illogical argument, and it's really just a product of people worrying about their rights and their things in life that they don't want to have to do. There's also something else that needs to be considered about masks, and that's this. If you're living in the northern climates, like in Wisconsin, Michigan, North Dakota, New York, those kind of places, it gets really cold, like 20 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, and quite a bit of wind with it. 50 degrees below 0 sometimes, not often, but gets pretty cold sometimes. And what we do is we wrap up with a lot of clothes, lots of heavy stuff, and then we put this thing around our face. Call it a mask, call it a muffler, call it a scarf. To this day, there's been no recorded incidences of anybody ever passing out because they wore a scarf to cover their face, though there's plenty of incidences of people who did not, that froze to death or had frostbite on their face. So let's just take these face mask ideas and toss them out of the window. The second thing we'll deal with is some of the numbers. How accurate are they? Are they really true? Are they being padded? Or is this really a serious issue? And so I have some statistics off to the side here I'll put up for us as we go through this. So in my research, I've discovered that right about now there's about 175,651 people with COVID. Now, some people are going to tell you this isn't that big a number, it doesn't bother them. And I get that. I also understand some people say the number's padded. Get that as well too. So let's have a little bit of dark humor and a little bit of fun with this number. First of all, this is going up about 1,000 or so people per day. I want you to understand that 1,000 or so dead Americans a day is not a big deal, especially if you don't like Americans. But if you like Americans, that might be a horrendous number. Let's go out there and apply it to some other things and how we can get our rights back in other areas of our life too. For example, drinking and driving. Let's go with that one. Automobile accidents in 2016. These are the statistics. There's some other statistics newer, but sometimes it takes time to compile them. But in 2016, there were 37,461 Americans who died in automobile accidents that year, 2016. That's 102 people per day. That is nothing, folks. We kill 10 times that many, or at least 5 times that many with COVID. This should not bother you. Now, drinking and driving. D&D laws. Drinking and driving didn't kill all these people. In fact, only a mere 10,497 people died drinking and driving an alcohol-related car accident in 2016. Folks, we do that in a week with COVID. This should not bother us. Here's the problem. we have over half of most state budgets that are being applied to the police, jails, and prisons. We can cut people's taxes, and it's only going to cost 10,000 lives, maybe a few more. Not a problem, don't need it. Here's something else, seatbelts. Seatbelts came into a rule, they told us we had to do it, and we have to wear this. It's more constraining than a face mask. That's the part that irritates me. Now, we don't know how many people die because they didn't wear a seatbelt, but this is what we know. 47% of the people that die in automobile accidents were not wearing a seatbelt. But about 85% of the people do wear a seatbelt, so we know they help. And the statistic is estimated that 14,955 people, estimated, did not die because of wearing a seatbelt. Now, I think that is horrendous. We take people's rights away by telling them they have to wear a mask, then we tell them we have to wear a seatbelt. I say we cut the seatbelts out and save that money. 15,000 dead people, not even 2 weeks with COVID. It's not a problem. Let's get rid of it, and let's get our God-given American rights right back in our pocket. Let's look at a few other things, as long as we're at it. I know you guys are going to say the flu. It's kind of like the flu. 12 to 61,000 people per year die. Most of the time it's toward the low end from the flu. Not a problem. No more vaccine. Let's not waste the money. Let's put it back in the pocket of the people. Then let's talk about some other things, like war. World War II. Now, how many American soldiers died in battle in World War II? Well, I got a number for you. And by the way, there's links at the bottom of this post and in the video where you can go and look at these numbers yourself. We know how many people died in the wars. World War II was a pretty serious one. Here, you're going to like this. 291,557. At the pace we're going, we should have that pretty much cleaned up by the end of 2020. Not a problem. We don't mind 300,000 dead Americans. It's a good start. Now, one last thing before we talk about how much money we can save by getting rid of these stupid rules. Vietnam. Now, people old enough understand how this was in the 1960s and early 70s. The nightly news would come on, and the first thing they would tell you is how many more Americans died in a foreign country called Vietnam. And at the end of the day, 11 years, we killed 47,434 Americans. Now here's something pretty interesting. That's a month. We probably do it better than a month. COVID's going to take 11 years. That's not that many. Anybody that believes in these numbers and that this number's not that big should be protesting. Protesting to get rid of drinking and driving laws, protesting to get rid of seatbelt laws, and protesting to reinstitute the draft and go over to Vietnam and get the job done. This time we'll finish it. But that won't work. The Vietnamese like us now. They'll come over there when we walk on the shore and they're going to say, come right this way, have a meal, and it's not going to work. So we got to come up with some better ideas. And I have them. One more thing I'd like to talk about is the murder rate in the United States. Because, you know, we got to talk about this kind of stuff. How many people are really getting killed? And should we be putting people in jail just because they got ticked off at somebody and planted them? Murder. Now, in 2018, 15,498 people were murdered in the United States. Now, again, 2 weeks max, COVID is going to do what it took the American people in violence to do in a whole year. I say, if we're going to get rid of drinking and driving laws, we get rid of this law too, and as long as we're going to open up the prisons and let them out, I think we should give them a gun too so they can protect themselves and their God-given American rights. Isn't that the way to do it? We should be protesting these things to the nth degree. How dare they tell us to wear seatbelts? How dare they tell us to wear a mask? And we want to go back to Vietnam and get the job done. It's the ways. And by the way, let the murderers out of jail because the prisons are full with these people, and we just know it was just a momentary thing. And if somebody's working really hard and wants one more for the road, let them have it. It's their God-given American right, and we don't go for this stuff where, okay, let's really look at this. We know these numbers are fake, right? We saw it on Facebook. I get it. Now, here's what happens. I've heard on Facebook, and Twitter too, that this number's padded with COVID. Okay. What they do is somebody has COVID, they drive down the road, wrap their car around a tree and die. They have COVID, they die from COVID. But we know the tree and the sudden stop is what killed them. So since we know these are numbers that are padded and inflated, let's get rid of some of those numbers that are really bad. Let's go 49. Okay, 2 people, well, maybe 3, died from something else that wouldn't have counted. And remember, these are all old people. They would have died anyway. You know that, I know that, right? So if you weren't wearing a seatbelt and you died, 50, 100 years, you're dead anyway. And if you're drinking and driving, give me a break. I mean, yeah, some people are dying, but taking people's right away just doesn't make sense. Here's the other thing. Young people really don't get that sick from COVID. I understand that. And I can prove that these laws and these other things and these other rights are still really important. For example, when it comes to alcohol-related deaths from drinking and driving, 1,233 of those people are children. That's all. Just like COVID. Not that many. I think get rid of seatbelts to save money. Stop restricting Americans in their car. I mean, we all know if you roll your car, you'll get thrown really far away and you'll be nice and safe. And that 1,300 or 1,200 kids, I mean, come on. We're killing that many. These kids aren't afraid of that. You should see them on Facebook. They're partying and getting together. Not a problem. Except, well, I can't do it anymore. Okay. You can turn it off. Okay. I had to take a little break. It drove me nuts. The truth is, we all know that the lie is the fuzzy logic. We really do have over 175,000 dead Americans. Some of them would have died anyway within a short period of time. We know that. We understand that. But hastening someone's death for no reason is foolish. The dark humor isn't that funny. What we look at here is 1,200 dead children is not funny. 10,000 people dying from drinking and driving is not funny. If we could have more people wearing their seatbelt, fewer people would be dead. I don't know why Americans enjoy seeing so many dead Americans, but it doesn't make sense. At 9/11 in 2001, we had a terrorist attack. And then we inconvenienced everybody by telling them they had to go through security at the airport. And that's very inconvenient. We put a really strong door on the cockpit of every airplane. And the fact of the matter is, maybe we should have just saved the money. A little dark humor again. It wasn't needed. It wasn't necessary. It was only 3,000 people. But here's the problem. We know that these numbers really are a lie. There really is a conspiracy. And that is, this right here, these fuzzy logic things, these people that have died from other causes, are really flattening the curve. If more people didn't wear a seatbelt, there'd be more dead people from traffic accidents, just by default. Not anybody doing anything wrong. More people are drinking and driving. We're not gonna make the problem better, and we're not gonna make the problem static if we don't necessarily, or if we get rid of these drinking and driving laws. So if you get rid of the drinking and driving laws, we're not going to have 10,500 dead people from alcohol-related auto accidents. This number is going to go up. No seatbelts, we're going to see an increase in that as well. So something to keep in mind. And the number of children dying in those situations, almost certainly to increase as well. And that's where we look at COVID. And I'm going to bring something in here. Of all the links that I have, this is the one I don't have a link for, but I encourage you to do it. And that is The Economist magazine. It's the one news magazine I tend to read pretty consistently, The Economist. And it's the recent issue, the August 22nd through 28th, 2020 issue. And on page 65 and 66, there is an article called Lingering Fog. What this is it tells us that we don't really know all the long-term effects of COVID-19. So some people, especially if they're younger, really don't have that many problems. They're asymptomatic or have mild symptoms. If you get older, like my age in the 50s, it's a little more risky. And if you get to be 60 or so and 70 or so, it gets to be very problematic. But with the lingering fog, what this article says is that what scientists and what doctors don't understand is that some of these kids are dying and they don't know why. But even worse, there's a number of these children or young people, basically in their teens and 20s, and they're getting ill and they're having long-term consequences. So months later, they're still feeling the effects. What doctors can't do is they can't look out 3, 4, 5 years. We don't know if going out 3, 4, 5 years or longer, there will be no problems and they will clear up on themselves, or if there will be long-term health effects. And with the magic of technology, all of a sudden I'm wearing glasses. Isn't that great? We're now to the last part, our section 2A, and that's the fuzzy logic of personal finance. Now, the link, of course, is in the description for the blog post with links to all this evidence, and I have many, many more. And I want to read a few things from here and then extrapolate from that, because it's important. If you fall for the fuzzy logic that this isn't that big of a number, or that a mask is a health risk to you, when we know that if it was cold enough out, you would actually wear a scarf and you'd cover your face without any problem. So the lesson's really simple when it comes to personal finance, and that is this: spend less than you earn, invest in broad-based index funds, and wait. You tell me how much time, or you tell me how much less you will spend compared to your income, and I'll tell you your net worth at any point in the future within a few percentage points. The insane logic takes hold. Like COVID-19, young people are less affected in the near term if they don't heed the mantra. It's a simple product of time, as in the more time your money has to grow, the more it does. Let's call it case rule number 34. And that leads us to this. All of us have heard the story of the twin brothers, that when they both hit 18, one twin brother starts saving $2,000 per year until he's 24. The other twin brother starts saving at 25, all the way to age 65. Both end up with about the same amount of money. But the first brother, because he started earlier, the first twin, ended up with the same amount of money, having invested only $14,000, while his twin brother that waited just a mere 7, 8 years later and started going forward, ended up investing $80,000 to get the same result. That's the fuzzy logic when you say this isn't an important number, or that these don't count, or they're padding the number, or a mask is going to make me suffocate, or I have a health reason for a mask, or I don't care to do it. It's an inconvenience. I get it. So is a seatbelt. Okay? So is being told not to drink too much, when most people drive home and have no problem whatsoever. The thing is, if you start early in your investing, it makes a difference. This kind of fuzzy logic will get you to make stupid decisions in your personal finance as well, because you've already taken that step. This kind of logic here, that this isn't an issue, that 175,000 Americans is not a big deal, that 10,500 dead people from alcohol-related auto accidents is not a big deal, is in fact a big deal. We can look at these numbers. Nobody's going to protest that we reinstitute the draft and go back to Vietnam. It's insanity. Yet we certainly protested back then. 4 dead in Ohio, if you remember the song, the old timers, you're all dated now. But 47,000 dead people, dead American soldiers, and it affected a lot of families. And the important thing is that 47,000 is a lot. And that's what they're doing every month with COVID-19. So you have to stop complaining about this. It's not a real hard thing. Social distancing is not an inconvenience. It's just common sense. Washing your hands is like, come on, guys, you should have been doing that all the while. And wearing a mask, you don't have to wear it all the time. In my office, I don't wear one very often. It's just the way it is. We do have sneeze guards. I actually do some things outside. If I'm walking in the park, it's not usually that big of a deal. But if I'm going to be where people are around, I wear the mask not because I'm going to save them, but because I'm not going to wear a mask because it's going to save me. I'm wearing a mask because I will not spread it if I inadvertently got it from a client or some other place in my life. Remember, the doctor that's doing the surgery does not wear the mask to protect him or her, but to protect you. If they sneeze, most, if not all, of the issues will go into the mask and not into your body cavity. Okay, so don't tell your doctor to take the mask off before surgery. It's just stupid logic, and the doctor won't do it. Now, if you wear a mask, you will get some protection. We know that. But it's limited. We get that. But remember, every time you slow this down, you slow this number, that flattening the curve means the doctors and the medical facilities can actually keep more people alive. And if enough people don't get reinfected, eventually we stop the disease. And if this doesn't convince you about your health, which is more important than money, by the way, then at least the financial part, learning the fuzzy logic of COVID-19 applied in your financial life will mean that it is going to be more difficult, if not impossible, for you to reach financial independence or enjoy the retirement you had planned. Choice is yours.